In 711 AD, a force of just a few thousand men crossed into southern Spain. It was a moment that would change the world. Within 7 years, they controlled most of the Iberian Peninsula. But how did this tiny force turn an entire continent upside down? What caused a massive shift from Christianity to Islam in one of Europe's most powerful regions? Was it just the sword? Today, we uncover the quiet revolution that changed history forever. A story of faith, power, and identity. Welcome to Mystery Decode, where we dive deep into the most shocking stories of history. I am your guide through time. This story takes us back to medieval Spain, a land where religious and cultural identities were in turmoil. The fall of the Visigothic kingdom left a massive opening for the Umayyad Caliphate to expand its influence. But the transformation that followed was far more complex than military conquest alone. It was a social revolution. In the years that followed, the Iberian Peninsula underwent one of the most profound religious shifts in European history. But how did it really happen? Let's take a closer look at the timeline. The Visigothic elite were fractured, and the common people felt disconnected from their rulers and the church. This instability provided the perfect landscape for a new power to rise and take root deeply in the local soil. It all started at the Battle of Guadalete in 711 AD, a turning point for the future of the entire continent. With the defeat of the Visigothic king, Roderick, a small Muslim army began their rapid and surprising conquest. By 718 AD, major urban centers were under Muslim control. This was a lightning-fast campaign. Yet, the people who lived there didn't simply convert overnight. The change was slow, deliberate, and multifaceted. How did a population of mostly Christians gradually become Muslim over the next 300 years? Military might was only the beginning. The real conquest happened in the hearts and minds of the common people. Once the dust of battle settled, the focus shifted to administration, law, and social organization. The shift didn't happen with a mass forced conversion. The process was much more strategic than we often imagine. Many of the Visigothic aristocracy converted to Islam, not out of spiritual revelation, but for practical self-interest. Under Muslim rule, they were promised to keep their lands and influence if they swore allegiance to the new state. These agreements, known as sulh, allowed Christian elites to retain power and status under the new Arab rule. The preservation of property and social standing was a powerful incentive for the old ruling class to adapt. As these elites converted, they became known as mu'alladun, the local converts who bridged two worlds. Their actions sparked a chain reaction across the social hierarchy of the peninsula. Influence flowed downward. Others followed suit, hoping to secure their status and improve their social position in the new, vibrant society. Over generations, this trickled down to the common folk, and more Christians converted. It became the path to success. By the 10th century, the majority in cities like Córdoba and Seville had embraced the new religion. This was a strategic move for survival and prosperity, a blend of political necessity and personal ambition. But it wasn't just the elite. The change was happening at every level of society, driven by complex forces. As more people converted, the cultural landscape began to tilt towards the east, toward Damascus and Baghdad. While the conversion of the elites set the stage, economic realities drove the masses at the bottom. Muslims, Christians, and Jews coexisted as dhimmi, or protected peoples under Islamic law, a delicate balance. However, Non-Muslims were heavily taxed, something Muslims were exempt from in the Umayyad Caliphate. Taxes such as the jizya tax and kharaj burdened non-Muslims, especially farmers and craftsmen in the rural areas. Many sought relief from these heavy financial burdens by choosing to convert to the faith of the ruling state. The tax advantages were clear, but the financial benefits weren't the only motivator for the common man. Converting also allowed social mobility and gained better access to resources and new educational opportunities. It opened doors to positions of power within the growing and complex Islamic bureaucracy and military. Conversion became a pathway to a better life, not just for the individual, but for their entire family line. The promise of a stable and prosperous future was too great for many to ignore in these changing centuries. This economic pressure created a steady flow of converts, slowly eroding the Christian majority. By the time the Caliphate reached its peak, the demographic shift was nearly complete in the south. However, conversion didn't immediately remove the social divisions that existed between the different groups. Early converts faced discrimination because Arab roots were still considered a mark of ultimate prestige and honor. To bridge this gap, many local converts sought to join the Arab elite by becoming mawali of the tribes. Being clients of an Arab tribe allowed them to access political and social networks previously closed to them. They began to adopt Arabic customs and secure better positions within the new society. Over generations, these mawali were fully integrated into the Arabized society of the Caliphate. They learned the Arabic language, adopted new customs, and even married into established Arab families. This was the Arabization process, a blending of cultural and religious practices into one unified whole. Language became a bridge between the old and the new, creating a truly unique Iberian identity. As the Arabic language spread, so did the ideas and values of the Islamic world, taking deep root in the West. Knowledge was translated, preserved, and expanded, making Spain the intellectual heart of Europe. This was the era of the convivencia, a time of shared learning and mutual respect between faiths. Beyond culture, Al-Andalus was a beacon of scientific advancement. The astrolabe and new mathematics flourished. Scholars like Averroes and Maimonides were born here, bridging the gap between ancient philosophy and the Renaissance. Innovative irrigation and new crops transformed the landscape, creating a garden of paradise on the peninsula. This intellectual energy was the true engine of the Quiet Revolution, drawing the brightest minds from across the world. It erased distinctions between local Iberians and Arabs over the passing centuries of coexistence. As the early Muslim settlers were mostly male, intermarriage played a significant and lasting role in society. Muslim men could marry Christian or Jewish women, and their children were raised as Muslims by law. Over generations, the descendants grew up fully immersed in the Islamic culture. Yet, they still held on to some aspects of their Iberian heritage in their daily lives and local traditions. This unique blend created a new class of Iberian Muslims who identified with Arab culture. By the 10th century, the once distinct divisions had all but disappeared from the complex social fabric. What remained was a unified society, primarily influenced by the Islamic faith. This synthesis was the strength of Al-Andalus, a golden age of science, art, and human cooperation. The blending of cultures created a landscape of innovation that would influence all of Europe. But the dominance of Islam in Iberia didn't last forever. The tide began to shift once more in the north. By the 11th century, The Christian Reconquista was gaining momentum in the north. Kingdoms like Castile and Aragon began pushing back against Muslim rule. Over several centuries, the once powerful Muslim presence started to crumble under the constant pressure. City after city fell back into Christian hands, changing the religious landscape once again. The process was as long and complex as the initial conversion, but in the completely opposite direction. The fall of Granada in 1492 marked the final end of Muslim rule in the Iberian Peninsula. A new era began. But the story of how Islam became rooted goes far beyond simple military conquest or final defeat. It was a slow, steady process of integration, political necessity, and economic incentives. The Islamic heritage left behind by the Moors is still evident in Spain's breathtaking architecture today. It lives on in the language and the very culture that defines the region and its people to this very day. This was not just a religious transformation, it was a revolution of identity for an entire continent. As we look back, we see that history is never as simple as a single battle or a single king's decree. It's a complex tapestry woven by millions of choices, driven by survival, ambition, and deep faith. Before we end, don't forget to subscribe to Mystery Decode for more fascinating stories from our past. Like this video if you found it interesting, and comment below your thoughts on this history. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. We will see you in the next episode. Mystery Decode, uncovering history one story at a time. Stay curious and keep exploring.